I've given an opinion which is very simple, okay? Have you read the book Animal Farm by George Orwell? That is the Vatican. You see, in the book, the pigs are the bosses and everybody else is not. In the Vatican, the heads of the dicasteries, each one is a little state of his own. Everybody manages on his own because they think they're the head of a department. They don't see the interactions. If you take the example from George Orwell, I think that is what the Vatican looks like. Exactly.
That is happening.
Well, it was happening then. I don't know. When I said at the beginning, everybody was doing the accounting in their own way because it was most convenient. They had their own rules. Everybody developed their own rules. When I went to see him, he said to me, I have to tell you that the Pope has lost faith in you, and therefore we're asking you to resign. You know, it was like a bombshell, you know. I went there for another reason. And I said, lost faith? What has happened? He said, the Pope doesn't believe that you are doing the right thing and you've been spying. And I said, spying? I said, I've not done anything of this nature. And you've committed other things. And I said, well, can I speak to the Pope? And he said, no, you can't speak to the Pope. I said, but I report to the Pope. My statute said I reported to the Pope. And he said, no. He said, we will call the gendarmerie. And now, when I was there with Cardinal Pell, it was already in a small Vatican deficit situation. But with the procedures that were being introduced, we should have been able to reorganize the finances since we both left. And I'll talk to you about my leaving and Cardinal Pell leaving. The deficit seems to have worsened, but I personally think it's about the lack of donations, and the lack of donations comes through transparency. And if there's no transparency, the donators will tend to reduce their contributions. And because the only income of the Vatican is rent and donations. And if you work for the Vatican, you have to be a Catholic. They do a check on you before you go. I'm still a Catholic, but I have some doubts about some of the things that happen in the Vatican. I'm not challenging the Catholic religion, but the management of what happens in the Vatican leave me very perplexed. At every meeting I had with him, he always used to ask me one question, Mr. Milone, are you still independent? And I said, yes, I'm independent. I think he was very concerned that there would be a lot of pressure. No, I think he had so many problems on his plate that it was very difficult. And if I come to you and tell you a story, which isn't a real story, but it sounds real, you would be convinced, right? So maybe he was being not informed correctly. I think so. It depends on the will of the next Pope and the cardinals to do what needs to be done. I think that they have to go back to the building block of the original financial reforms and properly implement the reform and make sure that the people are properly trained to do what they need to be.